And we're in the midst of another 72-hour fast. That's how we do it here. That's how we do it here on the show. You've caught me, and right now I am 25 hours into this week's fast. As you know, we do a 72-hour fast. It was great yesterday. I got the fast started later than I normally would because there was a lot of stuff at the office. I had to send some things home with some people because it was just amazing what they brought to the office. But we'll talk about that later. As we go through fasting and as I talk to people in the office, patients, as I talk to clients, as I talk to people who may just stop me randomly at church or other places when they find out what I'm doing, and there are questions that they have. And I thought, what a great way to get some of those questions answered right here on this space. And if you have questions, you can ask those also. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, get off of medication, who want to reverse their diabetes. That's what we're in the process of doing. If you're new to me, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music and let you know that I'm excited that you are here with me hanging out. If you do have questions, you can drop those in the comments as well, and we will get to those as we get through the show. If you're here and you know how we do, or if you're new, one of the things that we do is I show you what my blood sugars are, and I've got my meters off to the side that we're going to take a look at here in just a little while. And then right below me is my DEXCOM clarity report that we will take a look at. And I'm excited because this week we have our community meetup, which is coming up tomorrow night. And if you've signed up, if you are joining us, then you get to see what my blood sugars have been, what my A1C is, and some of my labs. I had my visit with my physician just a little over 2 weeks ago. And so I've got those labs that we're going to share, and you want to be there, you want to see that, make sure that you sign up for that. Now, one thing I think when you signed up, there were several people who said that when they signed up, they saw the link and it says for November and December, but it actually is a link for October, November, and December. So make sure that you get there. All right. And as we get into the fast, I guess here's a great place to set the stage for what we're doing. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and say hello to our community that's out there and just welcome you to the space. I see Steve, and Steve is saying hello. Hey, Steve, glad that you are here. Whatever platform you are joining us from, whether you are on Instagram or Twitch or LinkedIn or Facebook, of course, and then over here on YouTube, welcome to this space. Just drop a line, say hello, let us know what's going on. If you are in a fast right now, say in. If you've just come out of the fast, say out. And if you're going into a fast coming up, say going, right? So in a fast, coming out of a fast, or going into a fast. Drop that in the comments because we'd love to know where you are in your fasting process. So let's go ahead and let's jump into our show. And so to kind of give you a backdrop, New Year, New You. That's the platform, that is the pathway that we've been using in our quest to reverse diabetes. A new year, new you, right? Creating a new us in the new year. And I guess one point to be made is that even though we're saying new year, that doesn't mean that this is just now. Right? So I've had some people say to me, "Well, okay, so I guess we're almost done." I said, "No. This is not like one and done. This is not okay. You do it and then it's over." Remember what we said when we first started the process is we're not looking to do something for a day or 2 days or a week or a month. We're looking to do something for the rest of our lives. And so all the things that we've been learning is with the intention of having a format, having a structure, having a protocol that we can implement and that we can continue to refine and use over and over and over, right? So new year, new you, not just for now, but this is something that you are going to take with you as you continue to build and continue to improve your metabolism, okay? But new year, new you, right? Our thrust has been, hey, we're reversing diabetes. We're getting off of diabetes medications. We're improving our metabolic health and all the associated things that go along with metabolism with diabetes. And there are several tools that we've learned in the process of reversing our diabetes in the New Year protocol. And one of the tools that we've learned is fasting, because fasting is a fascinating tool because it hits all the pillars that we've talked about in terms of reversing diabetes. Remember what those pillars are: decreasing insulin, suppressing the appetite, and reducing sugar. So all of those three are hit by fasting, because if you're fasting, you're not putting anything in, so you reduce sugar. When we reduce sugar, our body doesn't have to make as much insulin, or we don't have to take as much insulin from the outside. And so that's pillar number 2. And because we've decreased insulin, then our appetite is not stimulated, and so we've suppressed our appetite. So notice what happened. Simply by fasting, we've hit all 3 of the pillars. And so as we move into the space, the question is, how do we fast successfully? And that's what we're in the process of doing right now. And as you know, we go through on a weekly basis. We do our fasting, we do our check-ins, and we come and we learn, well, how do we do that successfully? On our YouTube channel, there is a playlist that's called How to Fast Successfully. Make sure you go through and watch that. And that has all of the shows that we've done, right, on fasting. Well, most of the shows are in there. We have a playlist that's called How to Reverse Diabetes. And that's a collection of the shows that we've done on reversing diabetes. Okay? Those are the Dwain Woode MD live shows that we do here. And so they're all out there. But fasting is an amazing tool. And so we're going to get into answering some of those questions on how, some of the things that you have questions about. So that's a backdrop of where we are, because you might be thinking, well, why are we fasting? Or what are we doing? What is the intention? And that's why we're doing it. That's where we are. Okay, so we'll go through and we'll talk about the things, questions that you may have. So how do we fast successfully? And the first thing that I always do when we talk about fasting as we get into this space is to do a check-in. Anytime you're interested in making changes, anytime you're interested in improving, refining, assessing, you want to make sure that you are doing a check-in. And in this space, in our fasting process, the check-in that we're doing is really 3-pronged, right? We're looking at how we are feeling physically, how we're doing mentally, and then how we're doing emotionally, because these are the places where people can tend to have difficulties. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at this area and just answering the question, how are we doing in those spaces? And so in terms of fasting, number 1, physically, and I am feeling energetic. I am not tired. We went away last week, came back home. I was very tired at the beginning of the week, and then got some rest. And as I got into my fast, as a matter of fact, last night I came home and I got on the couch and I fell asleep. I didn't wake up until this morning around, what time was that? I guess about 4:30, right? So got good sleep last night, and so feeling well rested, and plan to continue that as we move throughout the week. Often people will feel some low energy in this space, particularly as the body dips if they're doing one of the extended fasts, or even as people have talked to me over the course of this week even, that they sometimes will feel a little dip in their energy. I'm not feeling any of that right now. When you join us on Friday, when we do our review of fasting, we'll talk more about what some of those things what could be happening, right? So in terms of preparation, and so join us for that. But right now, I'm not feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty. As you know, if you're hydrated, right, and I've got my trusty little cup here or mug. If you're hydrated, some of those symptoms will not manifest. They won't show up because you're well hydrated. If you're not, then you can have some of those other symptoms, particularly palpitation, lightheadedness, and dizziness. And also now, let's talk about how I'm feeling mentally. So mentation tends to go along with your energy and how you're feeling physically, because you know if you're not well rested, then you will have kind of fogginess, cloudiness, feeling like you're in a bubble, feeling like you're not all there, feeling you're a little sluggish. And I'm not feeling any of that right now. I'm feeling clear. Today was an exciting day after getting good rest last night. Right? So feeling good there, and not feeling like I am sluggish or dull. And then emotionally, remember, fasting is not just a physically abstaining from food, it is a mental and an emotional activity as well. And emotionally, I'm excited having come back from our trip last week. Got into this week, and there were some issues that happened earlier in the week, but those have pretty much resolved. Looking forward to continuing to do some things in the creator space, and excited about the new series that we're working on, and on and on and on. So excited right now, and emotionally feeling pretty pumped up. So physically, mentally, and emotionally. Once again, if you are changing, if you're assessing, if you are trying to improve anything, you want to make sure that you're doing check-ins with yourself. And in this space, those are some of the check-ins that you should be doing, because those will help you. Those will help you maintain a good sense of what's going on, and allow you to tweak and or change things when it is needed. Okay? All right. So now let's hop over and let's take a look at what's going on in terms of my blood sugars. And one of the things that I didn't say, and let me pop over there, is we spent several weeks going through going through this model, the COPE model, that helps us deal with the emotional eating, dealing with the things that push us off of our diet, deal with those food triggers. And we came back on this past show, and we did a deep dive into the pause part of that, because pausing, having the ability to interrupt the automaticity that comes when we have some stressful event, and allow our prefrontal cortex to overshadow or subdue, if you will, the amygdala, which is that part of the brain that says, hey, I'm in danger, let me go eat. Or I'm feeling stressed, let me go eat. Or I'm feeling worried, or whatever it is. So the prefrontal cortex comes over, and the prefrontal cortex will help to mitigate that, right? It's kind of like if you see a tiger and you want to run, right? That's the amygdala saying run. But the prefrontal cortex says, hey, wait a minute, that tiger is in a zoo. Notice we still saw the tiger, but we didn't run because it's in the zoo. That's because the thinking part of our brain comes in. And so the COPE model is there. We did several shows on that. Make sure that you get out and you watch that, because this is very important also for fasting. Because if we're not aware of that and we're not able to manage that well, then that can interrupt our fast and set us up so that we're not as successful as we want to be. All right. So with that said, let's go and take a look at blood sugars. And you saw my meter there. And so my meter is saying that my blood sugar right now is 93, right? And you'll see over the course of the day, looking in the gray, I guess the olive green bar right at the bottom there with the white squiggly line. So those are my blood sugars. Notice that most of my blood sugars over the last 12 hours have been 150 or less. And then right at about 6 o'clock probably this afternoon, I dipped below 100, and it's kind of maintained right at or below 100 over the course of the rest of this evening. If I go and take a look at my DEXCOM, once again, you'll see kind of the same thing. This one I can actually put my finger on, and I can see the actual numbers. So right there at the beginning, we were 158, 150. So that one's 158. And then right here in the middle of the day, I think, no, that was in the morning, sorry. Right in the morning, we popped up. And that was the dawn phenomenon, because I was explaining to somebody today my change in toothpaste and the things I use to brush my teeth. Remember, we were concerned at one time that the toothpaste was causing a spike in blood sugar, and so I changed that. And this, what you're seeing right now, is without that toothpaste. So this was kind of dawn phenomenon, I believe, coming in, and just kind of waking up, getting ready for the day. My blood sugar spiked up, and actually for a couple of hours, it kept beeping as I was at work. So notice that it started down here below 150, and I have my meter set at 150 because I want to know if it gets to 150 or higher. I don't want to wait till it gets to 180, and then I can make some decisions about what to do. All right, and then if I continue scrolling, so right at maybe, according to this, right at 10:17 in the morning, I got below 150 and kind of stayed there for the rest of the day. And then later this afternoon, I'm trying to see if this even shows me going below. Yeah, so this shows me kind of hanging out right at 100, whereas the Libre said that I was higher. If I change, and this was a 24-hour period, so if I go to 12-hour, this is the kind of thing that we saw with the Libre, where my blood sugar has been right at or below 150 for most of the day, and then right at about 6 o'clock maybe. So does that even show it? So this one doesn't show me dipping below 100. Okay, but we'll take a look at numbers here in just a minute when we look at my report. Over here I have my Keto Mojo and my Contour, and let's go ahead and pull a strip out. My Keto Mojo, as you know, gives me ketones and also gives me blood sugar. And as I'm doing this, there's a question that, of course, it's not in my question list, but a question that someone asked me today, and it was about using ketone sticks instead of the ketone meter. And when we I'm trying to think now how long it's been that we did a show where we talked about using different methods to measure our ketones. And one of the points I made was that using the strips, and all monitoring of ketone is good, right? Because it lets you know where you are. But one of the reasons that I don't use the strips is that it will take longer for my ketones to show up on the test strip in my urine, and then it takes longer for them to go away. So there are times when you may be in ketosis, but it hasn't quite showed up yet on your in your test strip, not test strip, but in your urine, or you're out of ketosis and it still says you're in. Okay. All right. So I'm talking, but let me go ahead and do this. So I've got my Contour, I've got my Keto Mojo, just got my Lancet out of my little container. And this is a simple one. Just kind of twist off the top and find a finger. And yeah, I guess let's do on this side. Ow, 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 ow. That hurts a little bit. And I don't think I got enough. Oh no. Okay, let's do that again. So let's do a different spot on the finger. I was trying to be gingerly. I was doing it, Okay, so let's go ahead and let's. Oh, ow, ow, ow. Okay, so let's see. Maybe, yeah, that one. Of course, now the other one is giving me a spot of blood as well. All right, so so let's get that started. So I'll see what these are. Now you'll see on my finger now I have two spots. So one there and one there. I should have waited a little longer. So 92 on the Keto Mojo. Keto Mojo. And then 94, sorry. 94. And my Libre says 95. So right now the odd man out is the DEXCOM, because it's saying 103. But once again, remember they can be 20% different. So 95 to 103 is pretty similar. Here is my ketone stick. So I'll get this out and pop this in here. And what do you think my ketones are going to be here at little over 24 hours? Let's get that started. All right, so pop that in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think it's going to be. And of course, I'm not going to show you what those results are. We'll come back to those. And then let's hop into our discussion. But before we do that, let's go ahead again and say hello to some of our community members. Of course, Steve is there. Steve says, I'm 6 hours in. So, okay, so he started his fasting 6 hours ago. All right, so remember, if you are in a fast, put in. If you're going in, if you are coming out of a fast, put out. And if you're going into a fast, put going. Okay. And then Jennifer says, howdy, Steve. What's up, Jennifer? Thanks for stopping by. Steve saying hello, Jennifer. Jennifer says 26 hours into a fast. It's been a while since I fasted. Okay, so Jennifer's there with us. So 26 hours. That's pretty. So Jennifer, we're pretty close to each other there. I love it. I love it. And Steve said, that's great, Jennifer. She says, thanks. 1.3 on your ketones. Okay, so we'll take a look and see what that is. 1.3. I think last week when I started, Steve was spot on. I think you said 0.6, and it was right at 0.6. So so glad that you that you're participating. So Jennifer, back to your comment about in the 26-hour fast. I love it. As for people who may be new, one of the things that we've advocated is that everyone in the metabolic space should be able to fast for 24 hours at least. So you work your way up to 24 hours, and then you can go to extended fast. So Jennifer's at 26 hours. And the second part of her comment there, it's been a while since she's fasted. One of the things that I talked about today, and it seems like I spent a lot of time today talking to several people, and we've got some interesting days coming up, and so we'll be doing a show where we talk a little bit about what we do during the holidays. All the things that we do in this space, all the tools that we use, are tools that we can put down and tools we can pick up. So just like there are seasons in the year, there are seasons in our life. And there are times when we do things differently because we're concentrated on something else. And so one of the points that I kept making today, and I want to make that to you, Jennifer, and to everyone who's watching, is that when we are in a space where there's some tool that we've had that we are not currently using, what happens often is we beat ourselves up. And when we beat ourselves up, often we don't get back to using the tool because there's this sense of, well, I did something wrong, did something bad. But it's a tool. And so the tool, I get to decide to put the tool down, and I get to also decide to pick the tool up. And so I'm excited, Jennifer, that you're fasting, even if it's been a while, right? Because it's a tool that we're using, and I'm glad that you're there. I'm glad that you are that you're here fasting with us again. All right, so let's go and let's take a look at our. There we go. Okay, so who, what, where, when, why, and what are the things? Who, what, where, when, why. Yeah, there was another one. Who, what, where, when, why. Yeah, all the questions. But there are lots of questions that people have when it comes to fasting. And I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to answer. Now, when we do our check-in on Friday, we go through fasting, but there may be some specific questions that you have that we'll try to get through as we move there. And we've done several shows where we've talked about some of these questions, but it's worth mentioning again. And there are some different flavors that people will have, and some things that we talked about today as I had conversations with several people in the office. So the first thing we want to talk about is what are some of the benefits of fasting, right? And this one, when we talk about fasting, we are talking in the metabolic space. So let's start there. So we are using fasting as a tool for reversing diabetes. And diabetes is the prototypic metabolic disease, and so all the things that go along with metabolism get better when it comes to fasting. So things like improved metabolic health, right? So that's what we just talked about. What does that mean? That means, and we'll have a question later on. That means that the metabolic milieu, if you will, the cells, the insulin resistant, the fat cells, the liver, the blood vessels, the cholesterol, the hormones that regulate all of those get improvement when it comes to fasting, right? So all of those things, they all fit into this idea of metabolism. And so when you hear people talk about metabolic syndrome, right? So if you look at metabolic syndrome, it's high elevated blood pressure, it's abnormal cholesterol, it's obesity, right? All those and dysglycemia. Dysglycemia means abnormal blood sugar. It doesn't necessarily mean diabetes, but blood sugars that are not normal. So all of those things fall into this idea of metabolic disease and metabolic health. So fasting helps with that. Enhanced autophagy. Autophagy, once again, is that cleanup process that the body goes through of recycling things. And so we get benefit from that. We have increased mental clarity. And we've done shows where we talk about how the use of ketones by the brain, which the brain likes, sets up a more efficient, a cleaner, a more stable energy source. And because of that, mental clarity happens. The body makes beta hydroxybutyrate, which also helps with mental clarity. Reduce inflammation. We're talking to somebody today who realized that they were having some inflammatory issues happening because they had been off, if you will, off of their eating plan, right? Somebody who had a procedure done and it was not healing like expected because of inflammation. And then we have weight loss and fat loss, right? So as our body's switching from burning carbs to burning fat, by virtue of that, what we're going to have is that the fat is going to go away. We're getting weight loss in that space, and all of that comes from this idea of fasting, right? So fasting, see, these are some of the benefits. Now, there's a bigger list of fasting benefits, but this is just a list, snippet, if you will, of that. And then the question, some frustrations that people often experience, right? One is plateau in their weight loss. So if they're using fasting for weight loss, what do you do when your weight's been going down and all of a sudden it stops? Right? So that's another question that people have. And often that can happen. I had someone today who was telling me that they switch up their fasting. So they do a 24-hour fast, and then they do a 48-hour fast. They do intermittent fasting. And so they were doing different things because they wanted to make sure that their body didn't just get used to the fasting. Now, I'll say to you this, that sometimes, and I'll tell you what happens to me in terms of, I guess, plateau or getting stagnant, is if you recall, several months ago, I had been fasting my 72 hours, and then 1 week, I think for 2 weeks, we did a 92-hour or 96 hours. We did a 96 hour, we did a 106 hour one week. And it was with this idea of changing up a little bit because I'd eaten a little differently over the previous couple of weeks, and so I wanted to reset my metabolism. Okay? So there is this idea of resetting metabolism. So one of the frustrations that people will have sometimes is this plateau that they will run into. Another frustration is GI discomfort. And I've had more kind of nausea than I have had in the past over the last several weeks. And I'm not really sure what that is, but I do know that when I'm not hydrated well, then I get more nauseated. Okay, so GI discomfort. Sleep disturbance. Some people say, hey, well, I'm thinking about food, or I'm hungry, or I'm feeling weak, or I'm feeling dizzy, I'm feeling shaky, and so that can disturb the sleep. Right, so these are some things that people will say. Or concerns from muscle loss. Last week we did a show where we talked about fasting and muscles, maintaining muscle. So one of the concerns or frustrations that people have is that they hear all this stuff about muscle loss, or they may be even experiencing some, and they're not quite sure what's happening and what's going on there. And then, of course, difficulty breaking the fast. And this one, I got to put a pin, and I got to talk to you. Because this, of all the things that I do, there are two areas that in my fast, or even not my non-fast, I guess let's talk about the fasting first. One of the areas of fasting difficulty is the breaking, right? Because I extend my ketosis for a little while after fasting by the things I eat. Great, right? I don't go and I stuff myself with stuff right after the fast. Great. But I have what are considered healthy foods that I eat. And so I eat those after, and I end up eating more, number one. Number two, I snack, right? So there's no physiologic reason for snacking. So we're going to actually do a show on snacking, but there's no reason for snacking. And so as I get to the end of the fast, that's one of the places where I will have struggle. And then the other place is in my non-fasting days, on my eating windows, I struggle with decision fatigue. So all day I've made decisions. All day I am being asked questions. All day I am using my brain, right? And I'm talking all day. So when I'm on my way home sometimes, I don't talk in the car because all my words, I've used up all my words. And then I'm preparing to come here, right? And I'm going to be talking again. And so when I get through with that process, when I get through the day, when I get through with content here, when I get through with that, my brain says, I don't want to have to make any other decisions. And so the simplest decision is to get something to eat. When my brain says, okay, when my body says, hey, we want something to eat, the simplest decision is to just do it, right? Because I don't have to make a decision at that point. Right? So you may find yourself, if you struggle with that in the evening, it may be the decision fatigue, maybe just getting through the day and having, so many things go on, and you're just emotionally drained at the end of the day. Okay? But breaking the fast, breaking it properly is very important, because if not, then we end up undoing some of the things that we've done in the past, in the future. Well, during the fast. So let's hop over and let's talk about some specific questions that people will have. And the first one has to do with what can we have during a fast? What can we have during the fast? And the question that people ask here is, can I have anything besides water? Right? Can I have anything besides water? And here we are doing a calorie fast. We're not doing a dry fast, right? So we're not saying you can't have anything at all. We're not doing a dry fast. We're doing a calorie fast. That means we're not taking anything in that has calories in it. So suggested things that you can have besides water, of course, water is listed there. Herbal teas. So depending on the tea, and you've got to check it, because not all teas are non-calorie containing. Yeah, so if you look at them, some of them will have some calories in there. So here's a funny thing. Well, I guess it's not funny, but several weeks ago, I think I mentioned that I was having some GI distress, some GI upset during fasting. And what I found is that if I chew gum, right, that eases it up. Of course, now, there's other issues that come with that. So I went out and I bought gum, and it says sugar-free. Right? And I did not really pay close enough attention to realize that, yes, it said sugar free, but it had calories, right? So they didn't add any sugar to it, but it had natural calories, right, from some of the ingredients that were in there. So they weren't added sugar. And if you look at it, it says 0 sugar. Boom, done. So I'm like, yes, this is great. And so now I go and I eat it, and there were calories. And in fact, when I ate it, my blood sugar still went up. And so I'm still trying to figure that part out. But calories, right? So there are calories in it. So when you're looking at products, and this goes back to when I was doing the electrolytes, right? And that's the other word that's there, the electrolytes. Remember, I was doing, and let me pop these over here. These were a couple of the brands that I had gotten, and started using them, and then realized that, hey, wait a minute, they are not totally calorie and sugar free, right? So this one I think is the one that I decided was calorie and sugar free. Let's see. No, not even this one, because it says right there. Let's see, where does it say? I think you can see. It says 0 calories, but the line that says carbs, it says less than. Well, you probably can't see it. So let's see if I can do it this way. Right. It says less than 1 gram. Right. So less than 1 gram is not 0. Okay. So that was this one, and that was the Propel. All right. So that was the Propel. And then this one is the Zero Gatorade. And let's see, what's this one? It says, oh yeah, so here it is. So total carbohydrates, right? So it's 2 grams of carbohydrates, and you'll see 5 calories, right? So when I saw 0, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. So I grabbed it and brought it home, and then, right? But it's 0 sugar, but it's not 0 carbs. I see right there. It says 5 grams of or 5 calories. So anyway, so as you're looking at these products, you want to make sure that you are paying attention to those types of things. So a key point. When it comes to what we're eating, what we're drinking, you want to avoid any calorie-containing foods to maintain the fast's metabolic benefits, right? So we are saying that we're doing a calorie fast. So if you're doing that, then we don't want to take anything in that's going to interrupt that. And I think somebody called today was telling me about a dirty fast. So dirty fast meaning that there are some things that can interrupt the fast in the process. All right. And then let's see. How long should I fast for optimal results? How long should I fast for optimal results? Another question that people have. And the first point here to be made is that beginners should start with shorter fasts. So if you are just starting out, don't jump into a 72-hour fast. That's why one of the first things that we talked about was working our way up to be able to fast for a 24-hour period. Okay? And then also note that advanced benefits are often seen with longer fasts, right? Some of the extended fasts, like 24, 48 hours. So Jennifer, like for instance, right now is doing a 26 hours, okay? And research supports various durations, but some of the benefits like autophagy, that starts between a 16 to 24-hour period. Right? So if you're looking for more extensive improvement in metabolism, you may have to do longer fasts, but you don't have to do longer fasts all the time. Right? Remember, these are tools. So I do an extended fast every week. Part of the reason for that is that we're in this space with you. And I want you to see what happens, metabolism, in terms of metabolism. We track the blood sugar, we come on, we do the show. So part of that is the process of being in community. So I want to do an example for that so that you can see that. But the plan is not necessarily that you do a 72-hour fast every week, right? A 24-hour fast for sure. A 36-hour, 48-hour fast, that can be every week, but you don't have to do a 72-hour fast. But if you're looking for drastic improvements in your metabolism, you may have to do periodic longer fasts or more frequent longer fasts to get the benefit you want, right? Not that you can't get it with the shorter fast, but the shorter fast may take longer to get us where we need to be. So when I was looking at my metabolism and the things that I wanted to do, remember we did that 52 pounds in 1 year, right? 1 pound a week, right? 52 weeks. So the fasting started there, right? And I wasn't doing a 72-hour fast. I was doing intermittent fasting, 16 and 8, sometimes a 1 meal a day, right? So we were doing shorter fast, and it took us longer, but we were doing it at a pace that was healthy, that I thought I could maintain, I could be consistent with, and we saw the benefits of those. And then as we got into discussing New Year, New You, then we got into longer fasts. Okay, so start with shorter fast if you're new, and then of course if you need more metabolic help, you may need to do longer, more extended fasts. So that's the question: how long should I fast? Okay. And then another question that people will have is, does fasting help with weight loss? And we've kind of addressed this a little while ago, but the idea here is the difference between fasting and calorie restriction. Fasting versus calorie restriction. Last week we did a show where we talked about the differences. Calorie restriction will make it more difficult to lose weight, because when we're doing calorie restriction, we're still putting food in, we're still getting spikes in blood sugar, we're still getting elevation in insulin, or still have to take insulin. But when we are fasting, we're not putting anything in. That's why those 3 pillars are so important. We decrease sugar because we're not putting anything in. When that happens, insulin goes down to 0. Well, not to 0, but you get the idea. And when insulin goes down, it suppresses our appetite, right? And so fasting encourages fat adaptation and metabolic health. So I was telling somebody today that because they've been so used to fasting now, their body switches over to burning ketones more easily. But when you first start, then it takes a long time for that to happen. And then important note, it's important to maintain a healthy diet outside of your fasting window. When you're eating, that doesn't mean you can just go gorge, right? Somebody said to me today, in fact, that one of their challenges, and as I mentioned to you, one of my challenges is on the non-fasting days. Because if I'm not careful, I can easily undo what I did during the fast. So maintaining healthy eating on your non-fasting days. And I think last night or when we did our show, I was telling you guys about balanced bites. Balanced bites. Let me go ahead. I'm going to pull that up. Balanced bites. That's this idea that came out of one of the challenges that we did. And the challenge was to create a meal, create a specific type of meal, and balanced bites. So every bite that you take counts. And so we want to be balanced in what we're doing, right? So this, let me pull this. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Let's grab this one. Okay, so this whole idea of balanced bites. So balanced bites are, and maybe this one. Huh. Okay, that's all right. I was trying to get the top not cut out. So balanced bites. So as you are thinking about your food, as you're thinking about how do I eat on a non-fasting day, then we want to be balanced. So every bite that you do is going to count. And so this is not an obsession, but this is just awareness, right? So balanced bites. Remember, the idea with balanced bites was that we are doing, we're not doing processed. We're minimizing the processed. No added sugar, appropriate portion size, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, lean meats, healthy fats, tasty. So when you keep that concept in mind, balanced bites, that helps with the non-fasting days, because that can be a significant challenge for us, okay? For a lot of people, me including. So fasting is about timing, not necessarily just about calories. So that's why, for instance, the time restricted feeding says that we're going to align our eating window with times when the body's supposed to eat, and we're going to time our fasting window when we're not supposed to be eating, when we're sleeping, right? When we're resting. That's the idea of the circadian rhythm. And so it's not just, okay, did I cut back my calories, but am I eating at a time when my body is having optimal benefit from what I'm doing in terms of fasting? Okay. All right. Next question is it safe to exercise while fasting? And the answer is generally yes, right? So many people find light to moderate exercise like walking and so forth beneficial. High intensity workouts may be harder during a fast, particularly if you are someone who's used to having higher blood sugars. When you first start fasting, if you go right away and you're trying to do a high intensity workout, that's not going to work, right? Because your body's used to that flood of sugar. The other thing is that there is such a thing as fasting workouts. So where people actually are deliberately fasting or working out during fasting, because the ketones that the body uses, muscles are excited about those. When we fast, growth hormone goes up. And so growth hormone is the muscle sparing hormone, right? So when they get a big boost of growth hormone because they're fasting, and then they go exercise, they do the high intensity exercise, they get bigger muscles faster. And so some people love having that during the fasting. They do this high intensity workout. Okay. Next question is, how do I manage hunger and cravings? How do I manage hunger and cravings? And so this is an interesting one, because the first idea is to be able to understand the difference between hunger and appetite. Hunger and appetite. Because those cravings often will come not from hunger, but they will come from the appetite. That is, for instance, on Thanksgiving, Aunt Sue makes the slammingest pan of dressing or stuffing, whatever you call it, whatever part of the country you come from. And so even though I am not hungry and I'm fasting and Aunt Sue's coming over and she's bringing that pan, then my brain says we're going to have some. So I've got a craving for it. Hunger is a physiologic need for energy. My body's telling me I need energy. And there's a difference between those two. So that's the first thing to understand. Right? So hunger pangs are often temporary. It's kind of like if you're at work and you're busy, you'll work through an eating period. You'll work through lunch. You'll work through breakfast. You'll work through supper. But the moment you start thinking about food, it seems like, oh my God, I'm starving. But if somebody says to you, hey, that project that you've been working on, we need it like now. You kind of go back into that mode and you start working on the project. Well, what happened to the hunger? It's gone, right? So it's temporary. So drinking water, herbal teas can ease it. Distracting yourself can ease it. Mindfulness and distraction, right, can help. And then cravings tend to reduce as you fast. So as you get into the not longer, but as you get into not those initial hours, because remember the initial hours are the postprandial, the immediate postprandial period, the 0 to 6 hours. But as you get beyond that, then the cravings start to decrease. And then preparation is key. If you prepare well, then you get into a fast and you do the fast well. If you don't prepare well, then that can cause some additional issues, right? So hunger pangs and cravings. So can people with diabetes fast? I get this question all the time, and I want to answer it in two. First of all, yes. Okay, let me start there. So people with diabetes can fast. It's essential to approach it carefully and under guidance, right? So that goes without saying. So fasting has a lot of benefits and let me put this back up and then we'll come back and we'll unpack it. Benefits for blood sugar control, insulin sensitivity, and weight management. And it requires thoughtful planning and monitoring to avoid hypoglycemia. So that's the thing that a lot of people will be concerned about, is the hypoglycemia that they get from fasting. So diabetics can fast. Yes. Diabetics can fast. Let's break it into two categories, type 1 and type 2s. So type 2 diabetics can fast. They've got to adjust their medication so they avoid hypoglycemia. Right? Huge. Type 1s can fast. They've got to adjust their medication, which is insulin, down so that they can avoid hypoglycemia, understanding that a type 1 patient requires insulin. I was at the hospital just this evening before I came home, and I was talking to the nurses, and there was a patient who had a low blood sugar. And they held the insulin. And I said, why did you hold the insulin? I said, because the blood sugar went down. I said, the patient is a type 1 diabetic, so you can't hold the insulin. Right? Because they require the insulin. And so, even though they have a low blood sugar, we've got to do something to bring the blood sugar up so that we can give the insulin. Okay? And so, we went back and straightened that out. But often people will think that because they have a low blood sugar, they have to hold the insulin. And you can't do that. If you're a type 1 diabetic, that can't be done, right? You got to take insulin in. And that's why it's important to do this under supervision. So people with diabetes, type 1 or type 2, can fast. Okay? All right. So next question is, who should not fast? And so as I go through this list, I want to put a kind of caveat or an overriding thought, is that there are some people on this list, and it's not that they can't fast, but they have got to be more careful, and they definitely have to do it under supervision. Okay? So who should not fast? Number one, pregnant or breastfeeding women. So pregnant women should not fast because they need all the nutrients. If they're breastfeeding, they shouldn't fast because they are giving off calories when they're breastfeeding, and so they need calories coming in. Okay? And if you're thinking about fasting, make sure you're talking to a healthcare provider about it. People with a history of or current eating disorders, right? Because fasting can be triggering, particularly as you are getting to the end of a fast, you're breaking a fast, and people, if they're not careful, they can get into that spiral of food aversion and binging and, right, that whole process, right? But so we want to be careful with people who have a history of eating disorders. People who are taking certain medications, right? Once again, this is another group, not that they can't fast, but they should do it with supervision. Find out from your doctor, why am I not supposed to fast? Because a lot of times we'll have people who have medications and it says, take this with food. Well, what was the reason for saying taking it with food? Is it because people get nauseated with it, or it helps with the absorption of the medication, or something else going on? And so with discussion with your physician, you may be able to tease out that, okay, this was just a precaution. It doesn't mean that I have to have food with it. But if I take the medication and it has side effects like nausea, vomiting, and so forth, then I've got to come back and readdress that and eat with it. But there are a lot of medications that we take that it says take with food, but it's because sometimes people get nauseated and so forth. And if you're not one of those, then guess what? Doesn't matter. But make sure you're talking to your healthcare provider. People with low body weight or nutritional deficiencies. So if your body weight is already significantly low, then fasting may not be the thing for you. Now, if we're dealing with other metabolic diseases, other metabolic issues, once again, discuss with your family, your healthcare provider, and say, hey, is it okay to fast? Can I do this safely even though I'm low weight and have these deficiencies? Well, what are the deficiencies? How can we correct those? And then the other group are children and adolescents. Children and adolescents, because they're growing, their body needs the energy, their brain needs the energy, and so that, once again, should be under supervision. Now, there are some caveats to that. I think my youngest patient with type 2 diabetes was 6 years old. So if you're type 2 and a child, how do you treat metabolic disease, metabolic issues in that person? Right? So once again, you're talking to a healthcare provider. And that's why we've said here, whenever we do our show, whenever we open, we say we're talking to adults with type 2 diabetes. Not that the children can't fast, and not that type 1s can't fast, right? Because I've just gone through those. But we're talking specifically to those patients. The other people can, but it needs to be under supervision, right? So who should not fast? And then some common reasons why people don't fast. People don't fast because of hunger and cravings, right? Because they're like, well, I can't do that because I get hungry and I have those cravings that I can't overcome. The hunger is understanding the difference between hunger and cravings, hunger and appetite, making sure that we are well nutrient. What's the word? What's the phrase I'm trying to look? Well, making sure that you're eating nutrient dense foods in your eating window, so that when you get into the fast, then it's not such a big deal. And make sure you're eating things that are not going to stimulate the appetite. Like, I got into my fast yesterday, last evening. It would have been a fast earlier, right? Because I normally start the fast earlier. But the reason I had to delay it was because I had eaten some sweet stuff. Like, some people brought some stuff at the office that I ate. Yes, I did. It was donut holes, y'all. And as I got into the rest of the day, I found my brain saying, hey, you gotta eat eat something else. And so I delayed it, right? I delayed it because of appetite. And I did not want to get into the fast with all of that spike in blood sugar and spike in insulin, right? That's the key part, because the blood sugar came back down. But because I had that, the insulin levels had come out, and the insulin was stimulating my appetite. And then some side effects, right? So low energy, and this is seen as the body sometimes is transitioning from one energy source to another. Headaches or dizziness. I explained to someone today is that when we're used to our blood sugars being higher, when those blood sugars come down to near normal, then we can get headaches as a result of that, right? But once our body gets used to that, then guess what? We don't have that headache. Also, if we're not well hydrated, we can have headaches, lightheadedness, and dizziness. Okay? So making sure that you are hydrated. And then other reasons that people don't fast is because of social pressures. There are people around us, people who, and it's not that they're not supportive, but the behavior that we're with them, we're with them when it's around food, or our family is eating, or we're on vacation, or it's Thanksgiving, or it's Christmas, or it's my birthday, or it's whatever it is, right? So there are these social pressures, these social cues that will push us to eat, and people have decided, well, rather than deal with those social pressures, I'm not going to fast because I can't do fasting. Well, should we get into this? Yeah, let's get into it. There's this battle that goes on. There's this battle that happens between us in our brains when it comes to food, right? There are other things as well, but here we're talking about food. And let's take a particular day. Let's take a Thanksgiving day. And what happens is all day, what we do is we say, I'm not going to eat it, but I want it. I know I shouldn't have it, but it looks so good. I know that I'm not going to have any, but Aunt Sue, Aunt Christine, Aunt whoever makes such good whatever that thing is. And all day we're fighting with ourselves. And eventually, we're actually going to lose that battle. Yep. And most people lose that battle. And what happens by the end of the day, they end up eating stuff. And I kind of liken it to a war. right? So when there's a war, the person that loses has to do what the person that wins says. And the person that wins get to do whatever they want. And in this case, because that part of your brain won, right? The eating part of your brain won, the eating part of your brain ends up eating a whole lot more food, right? Because it won than you would have. Okay? And so there's this thing that goes on, this fight, and people, in seeing that fight, in understanding where they are currently, they decide, okay, I'm not going to fast, right? Because I just can't do it. There's this fight that goes on in me. I've tried not eating for whatever number of hours, and it doesn't work, and they've given up, right? But there are ways, right? And there's a concept that I want to, we're going to be coming back, and we're going to be talking about as we talk about the holidays, right? But it can be done. This is one of the reasons why people don't fast. Social pressures. And then difficulty maintaining consistency. Consistency is key. One of the series that we're going to be doing in the new year is my 100-day walk to consistency. My 100-day walk to consistency. We're taping that right now. Consistency is your superpower. Consistency gives life and energy to the decisions that we've made. Those plans that you've come up with in terms of your health, it is consistency that gets you there. You can have desire, you can have motivation, you can have a plan, but if you're inconsistent in applying the plan or implementing the plan, guess what? It doesn't work. There are several of us that have things that we would be so much farther ahead on if we were consistent. And so people during this say, well, I'm not really good at being consistent. And so they kind of don't go through the process. They don't implement. They don't get started because they're afraid that they won't be consistent. And rather than set themselves up their expectations, say, okay, I'm going to do this, and it not work, then they decided I'm not going to do it at all. Right? So lots of different reasons why people don't end up fasting. And I dare say that everything that you're seeing on the screen are things that can be managed. So that's, we're not going to get into how all of that happens, but I'm telling you right now that there is no lack of consistency. Well, let's take that one, right? People say, well, I am not consistent. And so I'll say to them, well, your job that you are on right now, how long have you worked there? Like, oh man, I've been there for 15, 20 years. It's like, how often have you called out? Like called in sick? Well, if I'm sick, I've probably over the 20 years, I've called out maybe 10 times, if that many. And I said, okay, so every day, and you work what, 5 days a week? Yeah, 4 or 5 days a week. And so for the last 20 years, what you're telling me is that every day you get up and you've gone to work and you've done your job and they haven't fired you. So apparently you're doing a job. And you called out maybe 5 or 10 times over the last 15, 20 years. Yes. And even there were some times when you were tired that you didn't want to go to work, you still went. Or you felt sick and you still went to work. Or there was something going on in the family that you needed to take care of, but you still went to work. And they're like, yeah. I said, well, we can't put the phrase inconsistent with you. Right? It doesn't go together. So it's not that you lack the ability to be consistent. So then the question becomes, what is the issue? And the issue is structure. It's structure. So you go to your job and you're consistent because there's structure there. There's accountability. There's a reward, right? So you get a check. That's the reward. There's accountability. There's the time clock, or there's the boss, your supervisor who's watching. There's the desire to not be an inconsistent person. right? So our reputation is on the line. So there are all these factors that come into play when it comes to the job. And the ability to be consistent in this space has to do with applying some of those same things into this space. Right? That's a whole nother conversation. But inconsistency, right? And all the reasons why people don't fast, not that they're all, things that we can just throw out the window. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we can put things in place to help us overcome those, and fasting can be done. Yeah. This is so exciting. I love this conversation, y'all. I love this conversation. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop over here, and let me say hello. Jennifer said, I'm type 2 diabetes. I built up into fasting. Yep, Jennifer. It can be done. It can be done. And I think a lot of times we have, people, when I talk to them, there are some residual things that come from the type 1 space that people have brought into the type 2 space. And so even when we're training, we'll tell people certain things that aren't actually completely the way it should be, or the way it is, because we've extrapolated some things from the type 1 space. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my ketones are. Well, actually, let's look at blood sugar first. And of course, I've got to get back in there. So while I'm doing that, let's go ahead and look at ketones. And let's see, I need to pull up my Keto Mojo app. Keto Mojo, and let's get my meter on the screen. And let's go ahead and turn that on. And then while that's doing, I'm logging back in. And let's go ahead and get that syncing. All right, so what do you think my ketones are going to be? What do you think they're going to be? Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Ah, okay, I got in here, so let's do this first. Okay, and we'll come back, we'll take a look at that. Let's see. So of course I got all my stuff here. We'll come back here in just a minute. Yeah, let's do this one. Yeah, and you'll see there on my report, my average blood sugar is 131. Let me get this up. So 131. I'm in target 87% of the time. Targeted 70 to 180. Glucose management indicator 6.4. So that means that if I were to get an A1C, it would be close to that. Remember, that is a calculated number and it's an estimate. If I do 90 days, we'll see my average blood sugar is 134. Still 87% in target, 70 to 180. My glucose management indicator is a little higher, 6.5. If I look at my daily graphs to see what's been going on over the last 24 hours, actually 20, how many is that? 25, 26 hours now. And you'll see for this day, well, let's go back here. Right, so here's what. So right here, those are donuts, donut holes. It's only the hole, right? So less carbs from the donut, right? So just the hole, just the hole, the donut hole. That was my justification. All right, right. So started fasting right in here, and so blood sugars go down into the 130s, 120s, 140s. And then right about 6 o'clock, down near 100, and then we've been in that space for the rest of this evening. Okay, so that's where the blood sugars have been. And going back, let's see if I go back here. This is Friday evening when we broke our fast right in here. Or actually we broke it earlier. Yeah, that's right. We broke it earlier, so right here, and started eating, and so we went up to about 180. And then the next day, and my DEXCOM went out, so I had to change that, and so picked up here again 90, 100s, and then for the most of Sunday, we kind of hung out around 150s, right below 150. All right, and then started eating there in the afternoon, and then Monday, right? So we did our show and checked in right here. We were in the 90s. And then, of course, Tuesday, which is what we just looked at with those spikes. And then now into the fasting. So starting in the fasting right now. Awesome. All right. So now let's take a look. And so let's take a look. Drum roll. So ketones. So my blood sugar was 94 and ketones were 0.5. Remember when we talk about ketones that are less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. So right now I'm in nutritional ketosis, which is what we want to do. We want to stay in ketosis as we are doing the fat burning, the autophagy. We are staying there because we want to lose weight. We want to improve our metabolic health. We want to improve our insulin resistance. All those, that list of things, we want a 0.5 or higher. Okay. All right. So that's it, y'all. I want to make sure that if you have not done so yet, that you go ahead and sign up for our. There he goes. Sign up for our community meetup, which is going to be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central. Make sure you do that. We're going to be sharing some of my labs with you and having conversations. And what we do during the meetup is we really kind of talk about things that you're interested in. You know, we go around the room and we do a semi-coaching. Well, I shouldn't say semi. We do a coaching session for those people that are in the community. We do some discussion around fasting and reversing diabetes and other issues that people will have as they work through the metabolic space. I was talking to someone just today, and one of the comments that she made was that it is sometimes difficult doing this alone. And I'm going to say for me, it's always difficult doing this alone, right? Because even people who are in your space who are not diabetic, who are not dealing with some metabolic diseases, may not fully understand. And so being in a space where there are people who are like you, people who feel the same thing, people who think the same thing, people who have the cravings, right? Because that's a big one. Because people who are not in the space don't understand if you are a diabetic, if you are suffering from metabolic disease, why is it that you eat that thing that you ate? Well, you ate the thing that you ate because you got the craving, because the hormones are there, I mean, I don't mean to get into all of that, but there's a whole cascade. But being with someone where you say, man, I ate a donut hole, and they say, yeah, I get it. Right? Non-judgment. And so that's always important and always good. So come on through and hang out with us tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central. I just put the link in the chat for you to sign up. And then join us for our check-ins later on this week. And on Saturday, videos from the vault. Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Central, this week in review. And then, of course, next week, again, we will be back in the saddle with Dwain Woode, MD Live, our first show for the month as we move into the holidays. Okay, so I'm glad that you're here. Always excited to be in the space with you. As I always say, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health in your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. We'll see you when we see you in our next show. Good night, everybody.